Hey everybody, this is Jorik. Welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things travel and living as an expat overseas in Portugal. Tonight I want to talk about my former job and specifically a more serious note about suicide, specific to the veterinary community. Recently, there are a number of my friends and colleagues that are through social media are posting on behalf of an organization called Not One More Vet. So NOMV is the acronym. And the idea behind it is simple and frightening. Simple because it talks about veterinarians and suicide, and frightening because veterinarians from the professional ranks are top of the food chain when it comes to suicide. And I have worked with vets for 9 years, and in my time there, I'd worked with over 200 veterinarians in various capacities. I had done human resources and business development for an organization, so I got to be in contact with numerous people, all the vets, whether they be owning vets or associate vets, as well as vets in the community, so the competition, so to speak. And being in HR, I got to speak to numerous students that were looking to become veterinarians. So, want to note, this video is not coming off as I'm a vet and I know what to do. I'm not. Never been a vet. I've worked with them, and I will say over my time, I think I've found a few common threads that band veterinarians together and make them unique to their profession as opposed to other professions, and maybe some reasons why they happen to lead the list in suicide, and maybe some ideas or some thoughts on what vets can do to help themselves. So first things first, I've had a number of on and off the record conversations, again, from the period of 2010 to 2019, over 1,000 conversations, if not more, about stress, about work-life balance, about hours, organizational issues, client issues, pet issues. And there are a few things that I found that whether I was talking to a vet that was a baby boomer, Gen X like me, a millennial, we had not had any Gen Z in yet before I had left. Those three generations, male and female, whether they be an owner or an associate, all had some common threads when they were discussing, how they were doing on any given day. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that I found unique to vets more so than other businesses that I've been involved in, is the inability to say no. Or the wanting to say yes, if you turn that around. That's something that I found very alarming because, hey, we need you to come in and work another shift. Somebody's out sick today. Can you come in? Hey, I need you to cover a few more hours. Hey, the client's going off in the other room. Can you go handle that? All of those answers are yes, yes, yes. We need you to forego that vacation, or we need you to come back early because we have a situation. Okay, sounds good. I'll do it. More often than not, the veterinarian, regardless again of their position, years with the business, their gender, would say yes. They just couldn't say no to any request. And it didn't need to be organizational request. It could even be a client as well. So the ability to set boundaries, I found to be somewhat difficult for people that are veterinarians. I think there's a trait that wanting to please and do right by a business, do right by a client, oftentimes they may lead out the do right by themselves. And it's not easy because there isn't always a perfect scenario here. But I found that one thing that was lacking is Veterinarians being able or willing to speak up and set boundaries and say, no, I've worked 21 days in a row. I'm not working a 22nd day. Get someone else. I need to be with my family, or I just need a mental health day. I need a day to sleep all day. That's something I found that was unique, because in other businesses I've been in, it might have been the other way. People were setting boundaries everywhere, whereas vets seem to be very pleasing in their disposition and wanting to help. That's probably the reason why many people get into the profession, is that they want to help, they want to fix problems. So saying no is not necessarily part of their DNA, but I think to some degree they need to. There needs to be a way to find ground and areas where they can say no. Another area that I found to be interesting, I'll say, and it's not specific to vets, it's many different people and dispositions, is the idea of perfection or wanting to be perfect. And I'm careful when I say this. I don't mean wanting to score the highest on a test or something of that nature. It's specific to two areas. It's I can't lose a patient, and I can't have a client upset at me. In talking to, again, hundreds of vets over the years, it was the pet they lost that they thought they could have saved or should have saved. I think there's a delineation there. It's more often they felt they should have found a way to save a pet that haunted them. It wasn't all of the pets they saved that they probably shouldn't have, or somehow they were able to miraculously save them. They focused specifically on the ones that were gone. Clients as well. Clients are more discerning, they're more educated than they ever have been, and I think to some degree more challenging than they ever have been to the veterinary community. And with that, that can pose its own set of issues. So if you have a client that is irate about you, whether it be the fees or how much a surgery costs, or losing a pet due to a treatment or surgery, or just the general disposition. We live in a very divisive world, and if you get more prickly owners coming in and wanting certain things, that can increase stress. So not wanting to let the client down, not wanting to let the patient down, not wanting to let the business down in that pursuit of having something perfect and have it go right every time, is something that just can't happen. It just doesn't happen in any walk of life. But I've come across a number and a majority of veterinarians, I think, that do believe they should save every patient. There is kind of a perfect or a great conversation that can be had with clients, as well as a good relationship with their staff and with their business partners. And that's not always the case. And I think they just take it upon themselves and look in the mirror and say, what are they doing wrong every time, as opposed to, well, maybe it's the universe, maybe it's the client, maybe it's the business, maybe it's their peers, maybe it's colleagues and technical staff that are doing it, and they're not doing anything wrong at all. But I think they take on a great deal. They take on the world sometimes, and it's tough to get them to look past through the tunnel to see light at the end of it sometimes, and it's unfortunate. The third thing is something that, when I say this, I'm very hypocritical of, and that's taking time off. In a 9-year track record in a veterinary group, about 70% of the veterinarians did not take all of their time. In fact, it's probably a little higher than that. And generationally speaking, if you were a baby boomer, most likely you were an owner in the business, so you felt compelled to work more. And I think there is some generational stereotypes that are true and accurate about work, and they will do that and not complain and just keep working. Gen X, the kids of that generation, myself included, are used to working more than not, didn't really get taught about work-life balance, or wasn't really something that many of us were interested in. And in the vets, there's that sway of wanting to work more and do right by the business, but also wanting to have a life. The millennial generation that I had worked with just before I had left certainly wanted to have more life in less work. And even if that came with less pay, the difficulty is that would have to come with less hours. And sometimes the business and where the veterinary community is, there's such a dearth or lack of veterinary doctors out there that are going through school and graduating. Everybody needs doctors. So there's this thing of always being short, always being kind of behind, and it's never enough. There aren't enough doctors. There isn't enough time. There aren't enough hours because there's too many cases lined up outside the door. In fact, I had one doctor tell me a few years ago, just before I left, that said that I feel guilty taking any time off, even if it's a day to go get my tooth fixed, because I know that the rest of the doctors here don't have time or can't take time off, as well as I feel like I'm letting down the technical staff if we're a doctor down that day because I'm getting my tooth fixed. And that's getting an emergency tooth fixed, a root canal, let alone taking time off. There just seems to be, again, the mindset of wanting to help, and I can always help there. I can always lend a hand. It's part of my creed. That with that, the downside of that is not taking any time for yourself and not doing what you should to look out for yourself. So in that, it's something that really bothered me because I didn't have an answer for it and I didn't know what to tell them other than to take your time. And if people, the bosses are upset, they're going to have to live with it because you need your time off. And all of months and months go by and you don't get any time, or you get one day per month or a couple of days, and you don't get a chance to take, let's say, a week off and recharge. You're always in that grind and you're more prone to burn out. I can relate to that because I've lived through some of that myself. So I just wish that vets would have an opportunity to look at something I'm going to talk about right now. And that's one thing that I hope and I wish that vets realized, whether you're a student, whether you're a new grad, or whether you've been doing it for a long time. Couple of things. You're in the driver's seat for the next 10 years, and it started 7-8 years ago. There aren't enough docs going to school and graduating to take care of the great supply in the world. No one could have predicted that specific generations, let's say Gen X having less kids than baby boomers, but Millennial and Gen Z specifically having pet children in greater quantities than human children. So the pet population has exploded, pet services has. No one anticipated that. And it's going to take a decade or more before enough students go through school to where that ship or gets balanced, so to speak. It's going to be off balance for some time. So where I'm going with that is you're in the driver's seat. You get to cherry pick where you want to go. You can demand a higher salary or bonus. You can, if you're not looking for more money, but you want more time, usually that's the trade-off. You want more money, you got to work more hours. You want less money, you work less hours. There are concepts across North America and the globe that will offer that to you, that will give you more of your life in your work-life balance, knowing that there's going to be some salary commensurate with that. If you want, again, more time off, more CE, you have more power than you realize. And I think that if veterinarians kind of stood up and started wielding that, they'd be able to see some changes in how practices are run and how organizations, big organizations as well as smaller regional organizations, are led and run. The fourth thing I want to talk about is really this, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this in the easiest way possible, so I'm just going to go for it. Got to get help, and that's something that is a no-brainer, because obviously if it's the number one profession with suicides, you need to think about that in college, and colleges need to start looking at more testy and prickly clients and having students go through more drills and more training so that they're more aware of it. But when you come out as a new grad, as well as being a vet today, I really think that once a month you should be making an appointment with a mental health professional to get your head cleaned out. Twice a month or once a week or more than that if needed. And if it interacts with your schedule, got to figure out how to work out your schedule. There was an old college coach that used to tell me, McLean, you got to look out for number one and don't step in number two. And he meant that from a team perspective, always showing up to help the team out, always picking up the slack. Well, at some point, someone's got to pick up the slack for you, and you're not doing yourself or your team or your organization any good by always showing up when you shouldn't be there or you need a day off. So it's really the idea of going and checking it out. Everybody that has a contract with a major company in the U.S. and North America is going to have health insurance. U.S. specifically, Canada, you're going to have a socialized system. Europe, socialized system. But I would highly encourage you to talk to someone. No different than you don't want a client treating their pet cat or dog or turtle or bird at home. You'd rather have them get the best medical care, which is going to be under a doctor's care. Same thing for you. I would do my best to find your human resource executive, go online, find out what insurance plans you have, and make an appointment and start talking to someone. And do it soon and do it routinely so that you can get your head cleaned out from all of the surgeries that went wrong, the patients that you perseverate on and focus on that you've lost, as opposed to the successes and the ones that you've saved, the clients that drive you up a wall, the coworkers and business employees that may drive you nuts, getting all that stuff out so that you can take a break and recharge and let somebody else focus on how to work with you and change some of your personality traits as opposed to you trying to do it on your own. So it's a very long-winded video. I apologize. It's just something that's come up in my feed on social media that several former colleagues are focusing on that I wanted to kind of talk about in the hopes that people that are thinking about something call. There's several suicide prevention hotlines, or call a mental health professional and get in to see someone ASAP, because you're doing yourself a great service. You're doing everyone else around a great service. And frankly, people want to see you around. So, whatever goes on in work is never enough to make you want to do something to yourself. But there are many reasons why being in veterinary medicine, you can see no light at the end of the tunnel. So you got to work on that. And I hope that you do. And I hope that people can really get behind this idea and this organization that's been around for 7-8 years now of not one more vet. So I appreciate you letting me go on a little rant here and a little journey, and have a good night.